give introductions or whatever?
Is everybody here?
No, but we don't want to hold you up at this point, so.
Thank you for having us tonight. We were going to use the opportunity to do just a 5-minute presentation of the budget and then open up for questions that the board may have.
Okay.
It's just really important to us that if there's misinformation out there, in the community in any form, that we want to make sure we're here to be able to answer questions so that people are making informed decisions on the budget. But we appreciate the collaboration and really the time to be here. So I have been in the district for the past 60 days and I've been 100% acting as superintendent and very busy doing all the duties, and we are just thankful that we have the partnerships that we do here in the community. I would like to introduce Dr. DeBarber, who will introduce our team, and then give a quick overview, and then we'll open up for Q&A.
Okay.
So thank you. Joe DeBarber, Deputy Superintendent here in the district. Kim Vile with us, Assistant Superintendent for Management Services. And we have board member Sam Schrader, who's also here this evening. So as Dr. Davis mentioned, you should have this in front of you. Quick little cheat sheet that we have for you. Just an overall introduction of the budget. We have the budget that we're proposing for our school community for the 23-24 school year is just over $129 million. It is within our tax cap. We're going out with a proposed levy increase of 2.85%. And what I want to highlight with this budget is the fact that it is, again, student-focused. That's the primary responsibility of all of us here that work in the Board of Education. And I think you'll find what we have built into this budget is specifically focused on our program component. So anything that relates to students, that comprises approximately 78% of our overall budget that we're proposing. So it maintains all of our staffing that we have in our current 22-23 budget with some additions. Some of the additions are related to special education based on student needs. So we have two additional special education teachers being proposed in the budget. An ENL teacher for students that English is new to them, so it's not their first language. An adaptive physical education, health, and PE teacher, and then some additional clerical support. What I also want to point out is that the budget does have the maintaining of our school resource officers, our special resource patrol officers that we added this year, our learning coaches, our school counselors that were added at the elementary level. And the reason we're highlighting those positions, even though they're in our current staffing that we have, is that we were funding those positions through our American Rescue Plan Act funds from the federal government. And so what we've done is we've built them into our general funds so that we can sustain those moving forward. We were able to do that because we had a significant increase in foundation aid from New York State. We're now, at this point, going to be fully funded with foundation aid, and we were able to make some of those adjustments based on that funding. The other major component of our budget, we are looking at a one-time purchase for musical instruments at the beginning levels, so our grades 3, 4, and 5. Anybody that has students that have gone through the program in our district, when we start students out, parents have had to rent instruments through arts and music or some other entity. And so we feel it's important, especially at that level, that every student should have access if they want access. And so we have built in to this budget that one-time purchase. And we're doing that because with the increased foundation aid, it allows us to then use that funding in the 24-25 budget to offset any of our contractual obligations that we may have. So it is, again, student-focused, student-centered. We have 5 propositions total. The first proposition is the budget, as I mentioned, just over $129 million. Second proposition is for 14 student transportation vehicles, which would be our school buses. We have a 10-year replacement plan for our buses, and that's quite long, but we've been thankful that the voters have supported that purchase every year, year after year. Our third proposition is our capital project, and we have those displays listed there. We have a lot of videos that we've been putting out on our social media as well as our website, and we would encourage you to take time to watch those videos. Our students helped create those, and it was took us multiple times to do our presentations, and the editing that they had to do. We just give them a lot of credit. But we're excited about continuing to work with some capital improvements that will impact all of our students because they're in the middle school and the high school. Our fourth proposition is the Capital Reserve Fund. We've been very fortunate that taxpayers over the last many years have funded our capital projects through some of our reserves to help offset the local share. So we are asking voters to authorize another reserve in the amount of $10 million that we can move some of our additional funding that we have into the reserve if we are like our savings. And again, that will offset future projects that we know that we will need. Our fifth proposition is the land acquisition. Many of you know Van Buren Road gets very, very busy at Ray Middle School in the morning and in the afternoon and when there's large events. So we are looking to purchase a home that is, I believe, at this point vacant, condemned, however you want to phrase it, on Maple Road, and we are looking to demolish that and create another drive, so another access into the Ray Middle School campus, and at some point with future projects hope for additional parking. So we're excited about that option as well. And then our final proposition or area of the budget would be the Board of Education candidates. And we do have 7 candidates that are running for the board this year. So that's the quick overview. I didn't know if any of you have any questions for us, or Dr. Davis, Kim would be happy to answer anything that you may have.
I just want to add comments regarding the house on 48 that you're purchasing. It's the blue one between a couple of other houses. It's not where the actual sidewalk is coming out.
Yep.
However, it's going to have to go through, and I believe you've already talked to the neighbors to get their approval on trying to move this forward. The State Department of Transportation, because it's 48, is going to have to get involved. And I guess from my perspective, knowing some of the comments we've gotten about the traffic jams on Van Buren Road, I quite frankly am all for it because I think in the long run it'll help traffic all the way around.
And our landscape architects have been in contact with the State Department of Transportation, and so we are working through that process. And we can only do so much until we have hopefully a successful vote. And once that happens, then certainly there'll be a lot more work and communication with the neighbors and obviously all of you.
So one of the things we've added to the newsletter this year, because how many of you have children currently in the school district? Just one. For those of you that don't, when you get your budget newsletter, there's a QR code on the budget newsletter, which will be hover over it with your phone, and it'll take you right to our videotapes to better understand the components of the capital project and also the budget. What we are working really hard at is we've been out, boots to the ground, presenting. We presented to Rotary today. We're going to Canton Wood. We've been to every faculty meeting. We're out in the community. We're presenting to every township, just because it's so important. Coming off of COVID, what's happened is our students have, it's been a real setback for children. And I know there's a lot of chatter out there on social media for different opinions, but I think the biggest thing for me is, I've been doing this it's my 40th year, and, it comes down to it's about children, and, in the end, we want to support them. We don't want to go to contingent. If we go to contingent, we're looking at cutting $1.4 million from the budget, which impacts program, which also impacts use of the building, which our buildings are community centers. So we would have to resort to, under the law, charging folks for use of the facility, which we don't want to do that. So we're just hoping that we can answer questions and hopefully clarify concerns that people might have, and hopefully people feel comfortable. That's why we're coming out, so people feel comfortable. They put a face to it. They know us. They can call us at our office. They can come in and meet with us. We'll come out and have coffee with you, whatever people want. If you hear any concerns, if people want a one-on-one and talk and go through the numbers, we're happy to do that. But, you know, we stayed within the levy limit. We know how important that is. And we certainly are using reserves to offset expenditures for those large cyclic bills that come through, like TRS and ERS. We know those are huge. We prepare for those. In addition to that, we are using appropriated fund balance to offset costs to the taxpayers as well. So it's long-range financial planning that this young lady here has done a really great job, so that we can stay within that limit and also provide those programs for children. And as I said, you know, we're hoping to give those children that push that they need, not only academically, it's social and emotional. It really is. And we want to make sure that we have those supports in place for children. So.
I have some questions.
Go ahead, yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. So what is the tax cap for school districts? I mean, assuming it changes every year. Yeah, I know. You don't have to do the formula. I'm just curious.
What part of, what do you?
So for municipalities, it was originally 2%, except for it's never been 2%. So I don't know if it's the same for school. You said you were 2.85, but you didn't pierce the cap. So I was just curious what the cap is.
So I'm not sure who actually calculates the tax cap. I think that, and I don't know this, but there is a formula that's on the state website. So one of the pieces in that formula is a 2% cap on growth. So right now, we all know we've been up to 6%, 8% of growth. That's the only part of the 2% tax cap levy that's 2%. And then we have to take into account our pilots, which I assume you guys do as well. And then the local share in regards to our capital projects, which is probably a little bit different than you guys have, just because of our capital projects. If I explain just 1 second about a $100K project we have built into our budget, of that $100,000 project that we do at a specific building, approximately 87% of that is aidable. So what that means is the following year we get aid back. When we go out with these large projects, it's very similar. They refer to that other portion that's not aidable as the local share. That's built into the tax cap formula as well.
Okay.
So there's a number of factors, and then obviously it grows from the prior year into the current year that you're basing things on. So based on the calculation of all of those factors that we just kind of talked about and putting it into the state website, our tax cap was 2.85% that we could increase it this year, the total levy. And that's one thing we've been talking a lot about too, and we talked to people this morning about, is it is a tax levy cap, not a tax rate cap.
We understand that. So,
And it fluctuates every year.
I know, I understand that. I was just curious what the formula was. Well, rough. I mean, that satisfies my answer.
And just to add to that, this year, the town did not do a town-wide assessment increase. So our taxpayers will be benefiting from that as well. And I assume with your tax levy, it's going to be somewhat, hopefully, of a not as big of an increase or whatever for your tax.
The tax levy will get pushed over the assessed values. This is another conversation that we've been talking a lot about. What we have been finding is that when we project our tax rate per thousand in our hive that comes out this time of year, we're pushing that over last year's total property assessed values for our school district. Then what happens when we get those final numbers in August and we're going to the board to approve our tax warrant, that's actually what generates the real tax rate that gets pushed out over the town. It's much lower because of the larger amount of the assessed values that come in year after year. One of the questions that I've had since I've been here is that increase due to reassessments, and is it due to growth? And what's the difference? So as we were talking this morning with some of the town people that we had at one of our presentations, this year will show a little bit more of that because people aren't reassessing, so that growth will more than likely be related to new properties that have come on the tax rolls. But our tax levy will be, the increase on the tax levy, not the tax rate. So some people, and Dr. DeBarby can speak a little bit about some people's tax bills. We kind of took a look at this because we knew it was a discussion. Obviously, when you open up the Sunday paper and see it, we knew we had to be prepared to talk about it.
So I always use the example of my own house. from last year to this year's current school budget, my assessment went up $75,000. But when I look at what I'm currently paying in school taxes to what I was paying in school taxes in, 5 years ago, it's almost identical. Just based on, as Kim mentioned, that rate per thousand going down. So while people think that their taxes may be going up, I mean, on an individual basis, it really depends on, looking at your tax bills. So we understand everyone has different circumstances and situations, but I know for me, it's, looking at that, I feel confident in even with the large increases that we've seen with assessments that, we're doing as best we can for our homeowners.
How much is in your savings right now?
That's one of my questions, fund balance. Because you're using about $1 million annually.
Yeah, my son is in college now, but I was very active with the school, and I remember, years ago, it was like 18 million. What is it today?
So we actually have a fund balance management plan. I do not have that number off the top of my head, but I can definitely, we can get it to you. And we actually have a long-range financial plan that has all of that information in it now that we have the board adopt at the reorg meeting in July after the audit committee reviews it in June. But I can definitely send the link to you if you want to share that.
Yeah.
So you can look at the whole document. It has every single one of our reserves in it, when it was established, what our idea is about how much we want it funded for in the future, and then in addition to how we are spending that or replenishing it. So we have all of our capital reserves in there. The unique thing with capital reserves is they're only good for 10 years, and you can only fund them for the set amount that you initially went out to the voters. So that's why we're asking to be able to fund another one, based on the amount of money that we're pulling out, hopefully, of the reserves for this capital project that we're going out for in May. But I can definitely send that information over to you.
And I know one problem, you folks probably have restricted reserves as well, such as our tax certiorari reserve. I mean, what's in there is what reflects our exposure, and we have some active items happening right now, so we are funded for what the exposure will be, so we have to cover that. So when you look at the total fund balance, once Kim gets that to you, you have to also look at those restricted reserves. I always recommend pulling those out and then looking at the fund balance, because the restricted fund balance is really there to cover the exposures that you have, and that's what is important for taxpayers to know, and that does help protect the taxpayers. So if we do get a big litigation matter, or that exposure comes to closure, which they do, we have to be able to, fund those issues that come up. So,
But that's not for every one of your fund accounts.
No.
You have some money just sitting there for a rainy day.
Well, so the rainy day, just to highlight this capital project here, we are actually part of this local share. So as Kim mentioned, the $63.9 million project that we have up for a vote, 76.4% is covered in building aid, and then we have the capital reserve, which is about 11.7%. We are using $7.5 million from reserves to offset the local share of this project. So that's one way that we're trying to utilize some of our reserves to help our taxpayers.
Sure.
also like our TRS bill, ERS bills, we have very large bills. We have over 5,000 students in the district, we have 1,000 employees. Those bills are amazing.
Sure.
Startling. And so we do reserve for that, and do have a reserve plan for that to cover those, I call them cyclic liabilities. They come up every year. We know the bill's coming in December. We know we've got to pay them. So happy to meet with you too if you have further questions. We'll get that information over to the board. Would you like that submitted?
Sure, you can send it to me and then, or
Yeah.
to the clerk, and we can get that out.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
The only other thing was the property acquisition. So if it's a tax delinquent property, have you talked to Onondaga County about having them foreclose on it, put it to auction, pull it from auction, and give it to the school, dollar waive, blah, blah, blah?
So one of the things that's a struggle for us when we attempt to purchase property is that we have to have voter approval. So we have been talking with this homeowner who has things that they need to take care of, I will say, out of respect for people. So we have been doing the process in the way we have to do it. We purchased a piece of property over at McNamara last year, why we have 5 propositions again this year. And it's a process for us, so we have to go to our board, we have to have an up to amount, we then have to wait for voter approval. So with all of that process, I think that it would be very difficult to go through the auction process. And this homeowner has been very good to work with and waiting for us to be able to get all of those things in place in order to move forward. The nice thing is with voting with this along with the project, because we do have that roadway going into Ray, and Ray is part of our capital project, is that purchase is potentially aidable for us at our 87% aid ratio. That's how we did the purchase last year too. So we try to maximize any of the aidability we can in all of those options that we have from the state.
Let me just also interject, that homeowner called me to see if the town was interested in buying that property. And where it's located, it really doesn't provide anything of substance for the town to use. So I declined on that.
We're not in the real estate business. I have a question, if somebody hasn't already asked us. Is the late state budget going to impact any of your revenue?
Typically, the governor's run is what we use to formulate our budget because the legislators, they can be late, we can't be, so we have to plan. It's not going to affect our spending plan that goes out to voters. It will affect the impact, potentially, the revenue side of the budget, so we would have to make adjustments based on, if it comes in lower than the governor's run, then we have to, I'm going to go back to your comment, look at our reserves to fill in the gap that may be created by, a lack of funds from, the legislators. So we're waiting. We haven't seen anything yet. And certainly, I'm sure you guys are in the same position that we are in.
Oh, yeah.
We got a notice yesterday that they were extended a couple days to the 20th. Unfortunately, we have to get our newsletter on the street. We have to, we've got our 6-day notice that we are already putting together. So we are out of time to go to print and to mailing. When you schedule all that and your legal notices, you can't, they can have extensions, but it does negatively impact school districts.
Historically, though, schools have always reaped greater benefits in the legislative budget as opposed to the executive budget. So we're hopeful.
Well, we'll see what happens. There's over 800,000, 875,000 that they took with the foundation aid, and they restricted it, and they're calling it set aside. So they're saying that it has to be spent on 3 through 8 high-impact tutoring for students due to the COVID-19. So part of that additional aid is restricted for our expenses at this time. Until the legislator lifts that and takes that restriction off, then those funds will go towards our music programming and towards the student programming directly for children and learning. So.
Any other questions?
One more little one. Just
That's okay, because I'm having one.
That's all right.
I'm 23 years removed from graduating from Baldwinsville now, but just curious, what's the graduating class this year, the numbers? Is your census pretty
We have
stable, or?
We've been relatively stable. That's why we're receiving what we, hopefully, more foundation aid than we anticipated from what the governor announced last year. That's because our population has been stable. I mean, there's a slow trickle, but not to the extent that other districts across the state have, been impacted by. So we're pretty steady. Our incoming classes are around between 350 and 380, where historically some of our graduating classes have been 475 and higher.
I was in a 400 plus, and my
Yeah.
sister 3 years later was over 500.
Yeah, last year we were at, I believe it was like 411, 415. So
Okay.
we're right around that.
So you don't have capacity issues right now either.
Not
I mean,
right
we
now.
have to think about this with Micron and the growth that we anticipate in this community, and
So we've been able to counter some of the available space with the universal pre-K program that we've added. So we have 9 classrooms that are for universal pre-K this school year. We're actually looking to increase that by one in district next year in this budget. So we were able to do that because we had the space. But when you bring in UVK and then potential growth with Micron, there is conversation for long-term plans of what our buildings look like. And we just approved, the board just approved an RFP. We have a consultant, they're going to be working with us starting just after this budget vote for at least the next, through the next school year, the first half of the school year, to talk about configuration and projects moving forward. So we're looking for community input and stakeholders to be a part of that process, because we know projects take so long that we have to do that work now and continue to think beyond 5, 6, 7 years. We're talking 10, 15. And we know certainly Micron, from what they're predicting, will have that impact here.
A few years ago, I sat in as you were trying to figure out the growth for the school district. And at that point, I believe all of the school buildings were between 98 and 99% at capacity. And at one point, there had been discussion about, I think, selling off Van Buren School or whatnot.
Right now, it's been over 10, 15 years. 15 years now, I think, when that conversation took place. But
So where are you at capacity?
we are at capacity. Every classroom is utilized, and there are some buildings that are at greater capacity than others. And for us,
We have
it's,
staff on carts,
yeah.
where, like our AIS in some schools, they have a cart and they go room to room.
And part of the deal might be this committee ends up deciding that we have to look at redistricting because of the imbalance across schools. Eldon, Van Buren, two of our oldest schools, they're well over capacity. But
So-
we're making it work.
So here in Van Buren, we do have a potential big project up on the Kriego farm.
Yep.
They're going to be finishing back here with some townhomes, and I know there's a lot of new development being discussed over in Lysander. How involved are you on those developments? I guess a couple questions, like how are you notified? How are you involved? Are the developers reaching out to you to get, information on capacity? Should we be working together more closely on those things?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
And we will say, our prior business official, Jamie Rodums, and I some of you know Jamie, growth is good for schools, and we would never want to turn away that. But keeping us in the loop as you're working through your planning committees, I know the town of Lysander does work with us, engineers.
I'm sorry, but, excuse me, I think I can address that to an extent. As part of the seeker review process, the district is identified as an involved or interested agency, and they receive notification. And as part of that notification, they are provided with the application, they're provided with the information that we receive as to how many single-family homes, how many apartments, townhouses, what have you. And we request that they either participate as part of that, through that seeker process, or whether they have any concerns that they want us to be aware of. And we always, I say always, I can't remember a time when we don't, but that we get feedback from their district on that. So they do get notification.
So the one thing
that-
hard to determine, though, whether someone's going to have children, school-age children that will attend public school
Right.
or not,
It's studies. It's based upon just what is a standard. Typically, if you have a development with 100 single-family homes, what is the projected increase or impact on the district schools?
We do know in general, because we've done some other studies with consultants, and people ultimately are having fewer and fewer kids. And that's why we've seen that small trickle in our enrollment, even though our housing is
Growing,
homes
yeah.
going up left and right, whether it's townhomes, apartments, single-family homes, and we've been able to make things work. So I think to that point, we do see the seeker, but if you have any information that comes to you early on, even before it gets to that point, just keeping us in the loop, whether it goes through superintendent's office or through the business office, we just would appreciate that. We've had that conversation with Tom Lysander as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do you get copies of the planning board meeting minutes?
I do not from you guys, I do from some, yes. But that's what I was just thinking, because that process is one thing, and I know we sent our seeker information to you
Right.
guys as well. But then after the ball gets rolling, sometimes what is expected and what ends up happening, the time frame and how long and those kind of things. So I think the dialogue between us and the towns is very, very important.
I know Tony Geist, the previous chair for the planning board, he always was in contact to make sure where you were, that you were updated and how many students, because I know he asked you about the Morgan Road or right behind Rite Aid, how many were planned, how many children were expected, and now that stopped. So to Nadine's point, that has been, but certainly we have a new chair and vice chair of the planning board, so we can certainly have those notes get sent to you.
Absolutely.
We want to thank you for listening tonight and the partnership that we have here. We're very appreciative. So again, feel free to reach out to us anytime. I don't know, we're excited about the budget process. It's been a good one. We feel that, there's been a lot of community involvement. We have a community committee that has helped construct it, and our staff has been actively involved at every level. So our board also has been coming with us to these meetings, so you also have a community connection as well if you have questions.
Who would you like the planning board agendas and meeting minutes to be
You can
sent
send them
to?
to the superintendent's office.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
Anything else from the board?
Behind me.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All right,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sorry for our tardiness.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Kim.
So much.
Good night.
Are there any questions on the agenda at this point?
Yeah, why do we even have number 5?
I'm sorry?
Why do we even have number 5 listed?
The appraisal for the tax certiorari we have with Village Green Apartments and it's been in existence, or these tax suits have been in existence for 5 years at this point. And Nadine, you had answered Wendy's question. Do you want to explain a little bit more about the
So the appraisal is needed to, excuse me, once you have a tax cert matter, your assessment as the town is being challenged, essentially. So that's why it ends up being a burden on the town to defend its assessment. We have to defend the assessed value that, and I'm so sorry, I don't know why, I haven't had a problem all day with my voice, but apparently it's going croaky right now. Anyways, they have to, by having an appraisal, that's the only way that a court will recognize that the assessed value that the assessor has appropriated, if you will, is justifiable. So in this particular case, the school district has, I don't want them to be discouraged and change their minds, but they're doing 60%. That's okay, they agreed to it. But yes, so they are paying for 60% of the cost. We are picking up the remaining 40. As I mentioned to Councilor Vanderwater, the county, I think there's just so many tax cert matters throughout, they're not going to get involved. They leave that to traditionally just the town and the school districts. Also, we need that.
We didn't assess it.
one other
But you get
thing?
tax money off of it. It's no different than school. You've got to, the argument is there's a interest in that litigation, so to speak.
If this goes against the town, Teresa has given me the breakdown that overall for 2018 to 22, it will be a hit of $41,359. So if we spend, what was it? 2,400, and we can reduce, either win it and keep the assessments at the same dollar amount, or reduce any potential loss, it's in our favor.
One item on the agenda with the consider the land swap between Jammer Sports Bar Restaurants. The only thing I will say on that, you're not in the position yet to make any decisions. That's just a discussion point at this time because they are still going through that subdivision process. And it has not, it's only been scheduled for a public hearing at this point, so it hasn't actually been approved. But once again, that will be subject to permissive referendum, just like the last.
But it's not on the agenda.
And this is simply, they want to expand land that we have already transferred to them because they are adding a
So as I understand it, actually, they're,
ice cream stand.
A roof over the patio.
So again, they want, I forget the exact amount of feet, and you can talk to that, but 5 feet, but it's still land that is not of value to the town.
Correct.
So,
that's correct.
okay.
Having it transferred, taxed, even at a minimal amount, and not having to maintain it is actually more valuable to us than keeping the extra 5 feet. But tonight, there is not any action to be taken by the town board.
Okay, because I was informed by codes that we needed to approve something on that, so, okay.
Not yet. No, ultimately you will, but you have, no different than the last time around. Once the planning board approves a subdivision, then the town accepts that, approves, if you will, the transaction, and then it's subject to permissive referendum.
What are we talking about?
The land swap.
The land swap, yeah. So we'll just
pulling
table that. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll table that one, so, okay. And one that, I don't know how I forgot, but I will be making a request to, or recommendation to move a zone change from a R40 parcel to a PUD for CDS housing to,
You're adding that?
yeah, at number 8. I don't know why I forgot it, but, and the CDS housing is a 70-unit complex that they're looking to build. It will have apartments for disabled, seniors, and then based on income housing.
Is that the one on Van Buren Road?
Yeah, yep. So,
If that goes through, it's my understanding that that one project would satisfy any of the requirements that the housing compact, not that it's been incorporated yet as part of the budget, but if you were to assume it does go through, that would take care of your needs for the next 3 years,
right,
that one project,
so.
is my understanding.
Yes, and part of that project obviously would be subsidized by New York State. However, but the drawings that they showed us just in an informational meeting with the chair and vice chair from the planning board, and myself, and Jason, I think, were you there at that one as well? The planning board chair and vice chair were very interested in seeing it come into town. So.
Do you have any of those drawings that you can share with us? I mean, I'd like as much information as I can get before, we would vote on that.
No,
it's
we're
not
just
ready for
making a
vote.
recommendation to the
Right.
planning board.
Before I make a referral, I would like to see that information. I wouldn't,
Okay, back on my desk, bring it.
okay. Again, I just want as much information as I can before I make
I thought
any
you were-
type of opinion about it,
Just
just,
about number 3.
They came in for information only to the planning board last week. Gave a little presentation.
Who's doing that, CHA?
Yes.
That's correct.
And they have
You get a stamp.
3 other
I know, right?
properties in central New York already, Cicero, Clay, and I forget someplace else. So, Nadine, can you talk a little bit about the site plan extension for DGNY for the Memphis Solar
Yes.
Farm? That's been in
And
existence.
representative for PG is here this evening. So by way of explanation, this project has been approved by the planning board. However, building permits are only good for 1 year? 2 years, sorry. 2-year period, and theirs has expired. They haven't commenced construction sufficiently, so they need to have it extended. However, we have a moratorium in place. That's why it's before you. Normally, they would go back to the planning board. You're allowed 1 extension. Because of our moratorium, the way our moratorium reads, going to try to refer the actual language to you. Because it talks about specifically, we enact the moratorium prohibiting the siting, placement, installation, construction, erection, and enlargement of solar farms anywhere within the town. So here it is, section 5D. Solar farms which have been previously approved or are located on town-owned property are hereby expressly excluded from this moratorium and may be sited, placed, installed, constructed, and erected and operated in accordance with the approved plan. Here's the key for them. A further modification, alteration, or enlargement of a previously approved solar farm is prohibited while the moratorium is in effect. There is a very slight modification, very slight. If you want to speak to that, please do so. But, so it's not simply, because of the fact that they aren't having the same exact plan, and you can speak to it as well, but essentially the type of solar panels, I don't know why I'm doing this, but the type of panels that are part of the proposal are different. They are go ahead.
My name is Janet Ward, I'm with NextEra Energy Resources. The project was approved. They're a single-axis tracker panel with, I think it was a maximum height of 15 feet. At the time the panels were approved, or the project was approved, it was 2 in portrait, so it would be mounted like this with the turn in the middle. But the size of the panels that are available now are larger. And so if we did 2 in portrait, we would exceed the 15 feet maximum. And so we are designing it with the same footprint, and I have the design there. It's the same footprint, it's not changing that. It will just be 1 in portrait, so it will be actually less height, so it's less of an impact. And I talked to Casey Palmer about that, and he said that the town wouldn't require any change because it was actually less than what had been approved. But he said I needed to go back to the Thruway Authority, which I did, and they wanted to see an updated glare study, and they gave us an approval letter of that. So since I had, Casey had asked me to get approval from the Thruway Authority, I was advising the planning board that that change would be made, but it's less of, there's no change in the outline or the footprint. It'll just be slightly shorter.
But technically, the site plan document that would be referenced does change because of this. So erring on the side of caution and recognizing everything you do has some sort of a precedent-setting ability, it was decided that at the last planning board meeting, the applicant appeared, explained the situation, and even made indications that perhaps just an extension of the building permit would be acceptable. However, the planning board pointed out this is actually preferred, the modification, because it reduces the height of the solar panels ultimately. That being one of the things people typically complain about. So the planning board, recognizing that it's the town board that has the authority to grant any extensions while a modification, while a moratorium is in effect, the planning board recommended that she appear this evening and that the town board grant the extension as modified. So that is what is before you this evening.
Once we get into the actual meeting, we will ask you to give a brief update on that again. Okay. Let's see. Just a quick update on the contract for RLS structures for the pavilion. That's for the grant that we got, I think back in 19 or 20. The total grant was $100,000 from first Senator DeFrancisco, then to Senator Mannion. Our portion of that is...
There's no Antonacci in there somewhere?
Yes, Mannion, or DeFrancisco, Antonacci, now to Mannion, so...
No, I think May.
Yeah. No, well, Yes. And then we have the $28,000 matching grant that we have for it, so.
So the total project's
28,000, of which 10,450 was included in the operational budget.
Say that one again.
10,450. It was for the picnic tables, trash can, and I think the grill.
That's part of the 28,000.
That's part of the
Okay.
$28,000, yes.
10,450 for a picnic table.
Not one, for, I think it was
Multiple.
10, 8 or 10.
That's my question.
I don't know off the top of my head. It was in the budget. And you had given us a couple of names of contractors to get quotes from, which they did. And so I know that those have already been delivered and they're in the process of being sanded and painted. So. Okay. All right, seeing that it's now 7 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would you please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lynn, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Grover?
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Polchansky? Mrs. Vanderwater?
Here.
Ms. Wozniak? Here. Mr. Tucker?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the April 5th meeting, please?
Moved. Second it.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I abstain. Motion carried. All right. Lynn, anyone for citizens' comments?
Yes. I'm going to skip the school
Yes.
people?
Yes.
Okay. You're going to talk later?
Yep.
So we're down to Mr. Morgan?
Hi, can you come up and speak in the mic?
You all right? You heard her fine right there, right?
Well, it's since it's on
Okay,
PAC-B.
you film?
Yes, please. You'll be famous.
Also Morgan famous.
Okay.
This is Mr. Morgan.
Yeah. My name's Tim Morgan. I live on Lanyard Lane, and this is probably very preliminary, but I did want to let you guys know, so you have it in the back of your mind, if something comes up where there's approvals for people buying land to build houses in our development, we'd like you to be very careful when you decide what you want to put in there. We don't want cluster homes in our development. Our houses are on 1/3 acres. I believe they want to change that. They want to make it smaller so we can cram more houses in there. We don't want that. That's not the nature of Harbor Heights. And we hope that you guys would see that if it comes up and realize that that's not necessary. The housing compact's coming. So you guys, you got yourself covered now for 3 years, it looks like. So that's a good thing, all right? Because I don't know what's going on. You don't need, I know things are going on behind the old tops, right, behind the old P&C there. And if I read that map right, there's 6 apartment buildings in there with like 36 apartments in each one. Are you kidding
Well,
me?
he wanted 10, but we got him down, so.
Good job, okay? Keep on negotiating. It's a
Yeah.
poker game, right? I mean, they're not looking out for the good of the town of Van Buren,
Sure.
okay? They're looking out to make money.
Sure.
You guys' job is to represent and save us from this craziness that's happening. I also know that on Lanyard Lane, not my house, thank goodness, but there's houses on the lower section of Lanyard Lane that they've had water problems because there are underground streams all through that land between 31 and Lanyard. And they can say what they want. I mean, I'd leave it alone. But please, no clusters and don't change the art thing. If you have to build in there, just put nice houses in like we have already, okay?
Just so you know, when Mr. Barnaba came to give an informational.
I remember
meeting-
hearing from Durkee.
Right. And it's
You're aging
basically.
yourself now.
It's okay. I'm still 35. How old are you, Wendy?
It was referred to the planning board, and they will take up the matter as to making a recommendation back to the town board as far as any potential zone change.
Okay, I know it was contingent on, you didn't even, From what I read on the minutes, it was he wants to buy the land if he can build out there. Then he told you to go build someplace else if you didn't let him, right? That's what I read in it anyway. So I don't know. I tell him, don't let the door hit you on the way out, right? But thank you for your time. Appreciate it, okay? Wendy, nice seeing you. Darcy, nice seeing you.
Star students right here.
I got information.
We'll talk later. Lynn?
George coming.
I have nothing to say. I'm here to support Tim. I live on Lanyard Lane also, and would like to keep it the way it is.
Thank you.
Me too.
Yes. Now you know, okay?
We'd like to hear more from the community too. I mean, I'm also in the Harbor Heights area, and I hear a lot of people talking about it. So if you know other people, please have them come.
Or email.
I spoke to a couple. They're kind of like nothing's happened yet.
Nothing's happened, and nothing would happen without a public hearing.
Exactly.
And being that I live in Harbor Heights, I will blast it all over the neighborhood website, and everyone will know about it, and we would never do anything, without our residents' input.
Yeah, we're 40-year veterans out there, so we've been around with it, so we like it.
Yeah.
And also make sure you give your input to the planning board as they work through the process, because it's their recommendation back to the town board.
Who's on the planning board?
Those meetings are the second Tuesday of every month. Mark,
It's necessary to do that now.
I don't believe there's anything that is it even on the agenda for that yet.
If you don't let him change, if you don't change the RFP, you don't let him put buzzers in, he's not going to build it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Like I said, you got your buzzers are done now.
Right across from there, so
Yep.
there's stop and go. There's the car wash, there's stop and go.
All right. I'd like to recess the regular meeting and go into public hearing mode.
Right over here.
To hold the public hearing on the community development application. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right. We are now in public hearing mode. We have our 5-year community development consolidated plan, and I believe you all have had a copy of it. This year for the, Jason, why don't you go through the 5-year plan for us?
Sure. This year, we submitted our application. This is our public hearing to follow up to that. You need the microphone. Thank you. So I sent out an email a few weeks ago about a project. Apparently I got some misinformation on that we submitted that project and it got kicked back saying it was not eligible at our main park. So we scrambled. They gave us an extra week to submit another application, which I submitted last week, and that is the Snowdale Park improvements. It's for a pavilion, grills, some picnic tables, gravel parking lot, and a swing set up there. So that's been submitted. This is our public hearing for that, and your resolution accepting our 5-year plan. Going forward, 2024 through 2026 would all be Lower Seneca Knolls drainage pavement improvements. This would be piggybacked off from the project we're starting with the ARPA funds down there later this year, hopefully. 2027 is a potential sidewalk on Tappan Street. That's contingent on the Kriegel Farm development going. This would tie in some sections of sidewalk to that neighborhood. And then 2028 is some possible ADA accessibility improvements to the town park. Those projects in town park are, they do qualify under the central or the community development qualifications.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this application? Lauren? Okay. Lauren doesn't want to talk. All right, is there anybody that wishes to speak in opposition? Okay. Hearing nothing, I'd like to close the public hearing and go back into regular session. Can I get a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now on to item number 2. I'd like to get an approval to submit the community development application and 5-year plan, which was just reviewed by the town engineer.
Moved.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
I would like to know when there will be a consolidated plan that doesn't involve Seneca Knolls drainage.
Okay, I can address that one.
When will we be done with Seneca Knolls?
First of all, that's the Upper Knolls is complete.
Upper Knolls is
So
complete.
we're now moving to Lower Knolls. And on top of which, the reason you see it on this application is one of the few areas in our town that is still low to moderate income. So that's why we keep applying for funds through community development for it. You can fill in the blanks here.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to this. The pros are we have less areas that are eligible, meaning that our incomes are up in those areas. But that really tightens down the areas that we're eligible to get funding for through the CDBG.
I think it's important that we finish what we start.
And hopefully these ARPA funds go a long ways. Building prices are starting to come back down, so hopefully it goes farther than we think, and then we can take some of these off our 5-year plan and come up with some other projects.
I think we had, for the Upper Knolls, we had requested community development funds for 5 or 6 years that we got grants for, something along that line.
Right, and unfortunately, when we did that, they'd cut back the amount of money to $50,000 for the projects, so our money wasn't going too far, so that took longer than we anticipated finishing up the Upper Knolls.
Okay. We have a motion and second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome.
Number 3, I'd like to consider adoption of a site plan extension for DGNY New York, CS4, LLC Memphis Solar Farm, facility located at 6734 State Route 31 in Memphis. Can I get a motion for that?
Oh, do you want to first before?
Yeah, do you
Oh,
want to do
okay,
her
yes.
proposal first?
And again, since we are now in the regular meeting and not in the work session meeting, for the record, the reason that the applicant is appearing before the town board, when this is normally an action within the jurisdictional authority of the planning board ZBA, is because of the moratorium that is,
Because of the moratorium that is currently in effect that impacts solar systems. It is specifically relative to the prohibition that solar farms that have already been approved, which this particular solar farm has been approved, it can, although it may continue under the current moratorium as approved and as it exists, because the building permit has expired and there is a modification, albeit slight, but because there is a modification to the proposal, and that is what is going to be, or what the applicant is seeking an extension of, and it's necessary for the town board to consider this and grant approval if it feels is appropriate. Just for the record, as previously shared with the board, the applicant did appear last week before the Planning Board ZBA. There was an extensive discussion over the request to extend this and the fact that there is this modification, which the applicant is here tonight and is more capable at addressing how that is being modified. But ultimately, the planning board was of the opinion that although the extension would be appropriate as it exists, the modification is preferred. And that would be what the planning board would recommend that the board consider. But having said that, I'll turn over the mic to the applicant to explain the modification.
Hi, my name is Janet Ward. I'm with NextEra Energy Resources. I live at 20 Center Street in Brewster, New York. I'm here tonight representing DG New York CS4 LLC for the Memphis Solar Facility located at tax parcel 047.02-06.1, 6734 State Route 31, Memphis. This project had received a special use permit and site plan approval by resolution on May 14th of 2021. The 911 address has been issued, and that was 9/23 of 2021. And then the reason for the delay was we needed to go back and work with the utility on the interconnection study. So that required actually 2 additional studies, and so that back and forth time has taken some time. We've resolved that issue, actually improved that. So the interconnection, we're confident of the timing of that and the design of that with the utility. And as one of the things that has happened since the project was approved in 2021 is the size, the physical size of the solar panels has increased in what normally our procurement department would have. So the approval had a maximum height, I think, of 15 feet, and that approval was for a single-axis tracker. So the panels will be installed in a north-south, and they will rotate east to west, tracking the sun. And that was with 2 panels in portrait. So it would track, would be like this, and would track like that. But because the panels are now so much larger, having 2 in portrait would exceed the maximum height. So instead of asking for a revision on increasing the maximum height, we redesigned the project to be 1 in portrait. So it will still rotate, but it will actually be below the maximum height that was approved. In doing that, I spoke with, at the time, Casey Palmer was the building code enforcement officer here. I spoke with him, and he said that we didn't need to ask for a change from the planning board because it was a decrease of impact. But he asked us to please go back to the New York State Thruway Authority because the project is adjacent to the Thruway. So they asked us to redo the glare study, and then they have issued a letter of approval. So I provided in the packet that I submitted to the planning board the New York State Thruway Authority approval for the 1 in portrait, and that was dated 5/10 of 22. I also included the updated glare study so that the planning and codes had the updated glare study. And then I have the drawings that I have tonight that show what was approved, and then show the newer design showing that the footprint hasn't changed. So what was approved by the planning board as far as the landscaping, the outline of the fence, the location of all the panels, that will remain the same as what is approved. It will just, instead of being 2 in portrait, it will be 1 in portrait. And I can show you the drawings.
I will just interject one thing at this time. Under the moratorium, just to throw a little wrench here, the law reads that any request to the town board shall have a public hearing. I don't know, I think you're still okay with your timing. I don't think that's a problem for you. But what the town board can do, and I just say this so that the town board knows what's being considered this evening. Tonight, what you can actually do is just set the public hearing for the next meeting. Our meeting is the first Wednesday.
Yes, it'd be 5/3.
It's essentially in like 2 weeks from now. It would be to schedule the public hearing for that evening, and at that time, they could do the approval. Just so that tonight it is more of an informational, but that would just then extend your 6 months or your time frame from that time.
So this, let me turn this, see it. This was the drawing that was approved. And this shows the 2 in portrait, just 2 small rectangles. As you can see, the tables of panels run north-south, and they will rotate east-west. This is the thruway here, and this is New State Route 31. The access road is, this is existing, so there's no curb cut required. We have the New York State DOT approval up to that stage. The next part of the approval is just needing the contractor insurance information. So the design of the driveway has been approved. So you can see. This drawing, which is, again, this was the approved drawing. This is just showing the temporary laydown area for use during construction, and then that will be returned to vegetated surface. And this shows the landscaping plan that was approved approved in 2021. This will stay the same. This, this actually comes in and follows the fence line. So the land doesn't bump out here or here, it follows this fence line.
I'm sorry, what is the landscaping you're putting in? Are you putting pines all the way along?
This is juniper, two different species of juniper. It's 2 rows, spaced 15 feet on center, alternate, staggered. And that was approved in 2021. And then this is the drawing showing the new panels, as you can see. So this fence line again will be here, and this will come down here, which was what was approved. And then the landscaping would be around that. But this is just showing, one rectangle as opposed to 2 rectangles for the single versus the 2 in portrait. This interconnection would be what was approved here, which is the 5 new utility poles, which was already, that was part of the original design.
So your number of pedestals would stay the same?
Yes, the tables will stay the same. It's just the maximum height of the panels, instead of being at 15 feet.
That's what I thought I heard.
Slightly lower.
Okay, thank you.
So Nadine, we need to schedule a public hearing for this?
Yes, May 3rd.
So there's no vote on it tonight?
Correct.
Okay.
May 3rd, public hearing.
Okey-doke. Any other comments or
Do you
questions?
think we need the applicant to come back to the public hearing? Are you
Yes.
local here?
I will come back.
Okay.
Yes,
If it's the 3rd, I can come back.
yes, it's the 3rd, yes. Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
Oh, no problem. No, it's not a problem. I'd have to have someone else come back if it's later in May,
Nope.
but I'm available that day.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Great,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much. So is there anything else you need from me, or?
No.
And the time of the public hearing is?
Be 7 o'clock.
7?
7:01.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then moving on to item number 4.
We need to vote to schedule a public hearing.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the site plan extension for DD New York CS4 LLC for May 3rd at 7:01. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Darcy. All right, number 4, consider awarding the contract for the new pavilion to RLS Structures at a cost of $84,350. Again, this is based on the state grant that the town received many years ago. This is just for the structure and the cement pad. Jason, do you want to add anything to that?
No, we publicly bid this project. We only got one quote, which isn't surprising. RLS has done a lot of work in the town. They've done work for the town in the past. They're a good contractor. So you're correct, it's the pavilion with roll-down garage doors, so it can be used all weather for programming through the park. And it'll be 2 enclosed rooms, a utility room, and a 1-stall bathroom as well. That will be part of this bid. The framing of it, the interior of the park, or the ground building.
What will this pavilion be labeled as, do you know? E, G?
I think it's
F?
1.
1?
Yeah, because
They all A, B, C, D?
they didn't want to shift the names to put it over to A, or it might be AA or something.
I think at one time they were going to call it A, and then Pavilion A, which is very small and doesn't rent out very often, was just going to be
A1?
an open-use pavilion.
Oh,
Yeah, Heidi's.
That goes back a long time.
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, Heidi's figured out what the naming of the pavilion will be, and it will be used for the programs during the summer and also available for rent on the weekends. So, can I get a motion to approve this?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Good job, Jason.
Number 5, consider hiring CNY Pomeroy appraisers regarding a tax assessment suit for the cost of $2,400. The town is in a tax certiorari with, I forget the name of the company because it's changed so many times.
Village Green
Village Green.
EB LLC and Village Green HR LLC. There's two.
And the town has been in litigation with them on the assessment since 2018. And because this is scheduled to go to court, we need to provide an actual assessment. Nadine, can you go into that?
Because a tax certiorari matter requires that the town defend its assessed value, an appraisal will establish the fair market value of the property and help the town's claim that the assessed value that has been assigned, if you will, by the assessor is appropriate. So the town and the school district are together defending this matter, and so the cost of the appraiser is going to be split as proposed by the school district and the town. Because the school district has more to lose, if you will, on the tax basis, it has been agreed that the school district will pay 60%, town will be responsible for 40%. So the proposal before you this evening is to retain Pomeroy for $2,400.
And tax assessor has given me information that the total fund requested by Village Green for the 5-year period is $41,359.88. So
That's the refunded what they want?
that's what they're looking for,
Is
yes.
this the first appraisal?
Yes.
Yeah.
So kind of an interesting scenario if it was started in 18, but an appraisal, I mean, market values have jumped incredibly since 18. I'm assuming that they appraise current market value. I mean, they don't go back and look at what it would have been in 18. I don't, but the amount, normally this wouldn't really be a thing, but we've had huge changes in the market in the last 5 years, so.
Well, if you also remember, though, because of COVID, there was a time when you could not go to court. Everything was put on hold. So, and they have continued to file. So, and I don't believe it would be shocking if they file again to contest their assessed values. So even if, I honestly, I don't do the tax cert matter, so I don't know about the 2018, but regardless, given the fact that there has been multiple years, it'll still be effective.
So they have continued to file. Have they continued to pay taxes on the assessment during that time?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't want to be in default.
They get a refund.
No, you don't. That's what I was asking about. Thank you.
I make a motion that we approve hiring CNY Pomeroy at the rate of $2,400.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, let's see. Number 6, we are going to table at this point. This matter has to go before the planning board, and they have to have a public hearing on it. And this is simply a continuation. We swapped land with them back in January, and now they're looking to take a little bit more land, 5 feet. And from perspective of the town highway, it's a matter of this 5 feet is not of real value to us, but it still has to go through the process. And rather than giving them simply an easement to use that, I just asked to have it cleaner and have the whole parcel be correct. So that will come before us at a later date. All right, number 7, can I get a motion to approve the 46 vouchers for a total of $232,512?
I'll make that motion.
It's $232,515.12.
I'm sorry, that's what I had written.
I'll second that.
Any questions? I will say that one of the invoices in here is over half of this dollar amount, and it's to a contractor that's doing work for us on the Connors Road replacement. So, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And let's see, no, I have a penciled in number 8. I'd like to get a motion to transfer a zone change application from CD Housing for a 70-unit complex, which is on they're looking to purchase the R40 lot on Van Buren Road and change it to a PUD for this housing type. As mentioned in the work session, this is a new apartment complex that will handle disabled individuals, seniors, and have it rate income-based housing. The income limits were $31,000 up to $73,000. So can I get a motion to refer this to the planning board to make a recommendation back to the town board?
I'll move it.
Second.
Any questions?
Where is this located?
Van Buren Road, across from Marion Meadows.
Oh, all right.
Okay?
Yeah, I know the site.
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right.
So you're just moving it over to the planning board for them to, okay, just,
Yeah,
I need to
consider.
get that my head wrapped around that.
This is similar to, different in scale, but similar to the Kriego proposal. That requires, that's a PUD that they're also coming before you.
Yep.
So the
this
planning
is going
board
to go over to
will,
planning board. Planning board's going to make sure this is good. They're going to go through the whole thing. They're going to look at the site. They're going to do their
correct.
whole list. Then they'll make a recommendation and it'll come back here.
It'll come back with a
It'll
vote
take
on
months.
it.
Okay.
They do all the work, essentially. They've already met. They, like, as mentioned during the work session, the applicant appeared at the last planning board meeting for informational purposes, explained the process. There was some discussion about the plan, and actually the plan that they appeared with last week had already reflected some of the changes that had been suggested or requested from the first informal, I guess is a better term, meeting that our chair and deputy chair had with the applicant. So for example, there had been a question about the amount of parking, because there was a huge amount of parking that exceeded what our requirements are, and concerned with lot coverage and pervious coverage, they had suggested that that be reduced. And so already they had started to take consideration of that. So it'll come back to you in a complete form, if you will.
So they had more parking spots than normal developers have?
More than our code requires, yeah.
Yeah.
When we sat down with them, we did ask in general, because if they're going to have individuals that are disabled or seniors,
Yeah.
all of them may not have 1 or 2 cars per unit, so.
They also
and-
have different parking size.
Correct.
lots.
Yeah, but each apartment ought to have an adequate amount of cars assigned to it.
Correct.
No matter who lives there.
Right.
Oh, no, it was more that, the case that they exceeded what our code requires. So there was that. They had already reached out, in fact, to the county, Central, thank you,
Yeah.
for transportation. And Central already responded back and said they aren't interested in having a full bus run out here, but I guess they're smaller, like vans.
Free call, or a call ahead service.
Yes, that they would be willing to do that, recognizing who, or the demographics of the residents there. So they've already, they're thinking, they're really trying to embrace the housing compact requirements, and there is some thought going into this process. They did reference to the planning board, as the supervisor had mentioned, 2 or 3 other projects that they have been responsible for in the area, and invited the planning board ZBA members to go and look at them. So they had a good idea of what it is they do and how they do it. I can't tell you what those places were, but there
One's in
are.
Cicero, I think.
Yeah, but I don't remember their names. Do you?
Are they new at this?
No, they've got quite a few throughout New York State. They're headquartered in Rochester. They have some down in Elmira. Obviously, the western portion of the state, they're in central New York now, so.
So for clarification, Mary Frances, you mentioned it was senior housing. This is not senior housing.
Yes, it is. It is a combination of
It is not.
disabled.
It says right here, this project will provide young individuals, families, and seniors additional affordable housing opportunities. There is no age requirement on here.
Wendy, what I can tell you was in the meeting that we held with them, they said it is for disabled,
Yep.
senior, and other individuals that meet income housing.
I think that maybe the assumption is the income requirements would be desirable to
Maybe not
seniors.
seniors.
Well, what it says here is because there is reduced rent, seniors will be eligible to participate. So on their application, they've identified it as disabled and low-income residents. These are not going to be specific to senior citizens, so I just want to be clear on that. Additionally, it's saying that the 7 units that will be fully ADA accessible, 18 units for individuals with development disabilities will be supported through KU centers. Why wouldn't they want to work with Onondaga County on those programs? Why would they pull from another county for services?
I don't think KU, and I may be mistaken here, so huge disclaimer there, but I don't believe Cayuga Centers is a county organization.
I wonder if
State.
I think it's, yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily,
a county.
yes.
Okay.
I don't believe. But that's my very rudimentary
Okay.
understanding.
So I just want to preface, like I said, this is not a senior complex. This is a low-income complex.
You could call it a mixed-use complex if you'd like.
Well, I'll call it a low-income complex, which is what it says on here.
Well, it's not just low income. It's income-based, anywhere from $31,000 or something up to $73,000 as well. So, can I get a motion to refer this to,
I think you already have
Yes.
that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Council and committee reports. Howard?
I have none.
Jenny?
I don't have anything except I know Earth Day is this Saturday. So if anyone's going out, I know Okra's got their program to get items from them, bags and whatnot.
We
I'm
still
sure
haven't
Doug
said-
can tell us all about it.
You need to schedule a walk out on the canal trail.
We do, and it's getting nice out, so we definitely have to.
All right, good.
Darcy?
I don't have anything.
Wendy?
I had a Canton Woods board meeting last week, and I did want to communicate a couple things to the board. I'm just trying to pull it up. The first thing is Ruth Troy responded to my email regarding the senior care programs, or the senior programs that were available in the county executive's budget for 2023. She wasn't present at the meeting, she had COVID, so I did email her to see if there was a project list in play for those funds and if she had applied. Her response was there is no RFP or formal application process in place yet. For the county money, she said it's most likely the village is going to look for funds for a new roof, updated HVAC, and possibly some improvements in the kitchen. I know that this board doesn't really have an opinion one way or another how those funds are used, but just as long as they try to apply for them and be awarded something, hopefully. Additionally, I think I had mentioned to this board that there was a walking trail that they used some county money for that was put behind the facility. At the time, they put the walking posts in the ground just to identify like how far you've walked. The ground surface was grass, so there was conversation that, I mean, that's not conducive to seniors who are walking with, canes or ADA accessible. So we had a lot of dialogue to try to open that up to have some, finer ground put there so it could be opened up to other folks as well. And unbelievably, the state wouldn't support it. So the board agreed to use funds out of their senior fund. So that's the
It would be a great community development project for the village.
So I just don't think that, I think that they tried to get something like that and it just wasn't supported. So they're going to use the funds out of one of their many restricted accounts, the senior activities account, that's what it is, and pay for that directly out of that fund.
What's the cost?
No more than $9,000, I believe it is.
So what kind of material, like actually paving it or like a course?
Not for $9,000.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's what I would die.
They're paving. They're going to pave the walking path.
Is it a mile?
No, you go around it so many times and then it's a mile.
Oh, okay.
So it literally is like,
Lapping a track?
it probably is the parameter of this room, and you just go around it like several times and it's a mile. So I'm excited that they're going to pave it because what my biggest concern was, it wasn't accessible for any seniors who might be in a wheelchair or, had difficulty walking. So I'm super excited that they're going to use the funds from their senior activity account to pay for that. And I do think that they got a discount on the paving, and I think it was like under $9,000. So I really applaud Canton Woods for going the extra mile to try to do something like that with those funds, because that's what those funds are there for. And I do want to schedule a meeting for the comprehensive land use plan. Mayor Francis, at the last meeting, I had put out that I wanted to get some residents encouraged to participating in that committee. Has anyone reached out to you with any interest?
No, not at this point. It is on the website.
Okay, well, I'll have a meeting of one.
I know Tony Geis was interested in being on it.
Yeah, I reached out to Tony and Claude, and they both said yes, but I really wanted to get some residents that were interested in participating. Maybe I'll
I have one that
give Andy a call and see if he'd want to participate.
And I have one other person that might be very interested as well, so.
Okay.
I might have somebody too.
Okay, great. So, Lynn, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to schedule that meeting for May 8th at 5 o'clock.
So you're calling this is the comprehensive plan update committee?
Yep, this is the kickoff meeting for that. And I know that you won't be there.
Wendy, I've got a comment on the path.
Yes.
That's a capital improvement. Does the village know about it?
The village is very involved with that, yes.
Thank you. That's all.
I think, Jason, I think that's why. I think the state and the village, or the state and the county considered it a capital improvement, and that's why they wouldn't do the community development money.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Yeah.
It seems like that would also be eligible for ARPA funds. And then, since all three municipalities, if that gets sold, part of the money, it would be distributed to all three municipalities.
Well, I'm happy that they're using
Yes. Oh, yeah.
the senior committee funds. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
Bob?
Nothing, I would just like to say, good to see you, Doug. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Okay. I have no comments tonight. Highway Superintendent, sir?
Sorry, Lynn. Lawn repairs are just about done. They will be done by the end of this week. So come next week, if you have any lawn damage that was not repaired and you think the town was responsible for it, please contact our office. We'll take a look at it and take care of it if it was. In addition to that, this year you'll be seeing our crews as well as different vendors that we hired to do tree work. Last year, I don't have the exact number, but it was somewhere between 75 and 100 trees we cut down between us and vendors. The vast majority of them being ash trees that have suffered disease from the ash borer beetle, which is catastrophic. But there are also ones that we have to take down sometimes that cause significant potential hazards to the traveling public, whether it's vehicles, school buses, walkers, bicycles. So that will be going on again this year because we still have a ton of ash trees out there, and the dangerous trees pop up every year, that either from disease or from age or whatever happens. So that will be an ongoing project.
Let me ask, what do you do once you cut the trees down? What do you do? Mulch them?
The vast majority of them, either depending upon where the property is, if they want we'll chip them. If they want the chip, we'll leave them right there for the residents. If not, we usually end up taking them to tree landers because they dispose of all of our stuff for us. And that's where the vast majority of stuff that the residents don't want will often end up at tree landers.
Can you talk to Chris Ordway and see if the park has any need for extra?
We do. We actually, they pretty regularly ask us if they have any. We'll bring over a couple loads until they say no, and then we take it there. So we almost every year they've wanted some for obviously adding on trails and whatnot, and we put it over there, and he usually keeps a little stockpile so we can fill in whatever he needs to.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Francis, can I interrupt for a second? I found the email, and I just want to clarify because I didn't communicate it properly. With Canton Woods, they're participating in a creating healthy schools and community programs. And that program will cover the material but not the labor. So the labor is $7,150, and that's what's going to come out of the memorial and gifts account. And it will be overseen, the project will be overseen by Chuck McCullough.
Oh, terrific.
All right, so Lynn, can you just zoop that up to me? Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to get that information right.
Doug, are we participating in Earth Day this year?
We are taking, as the different representatives of the different groups go around and pick up stuff, they bring it to our facility, and then we transfer it to the transfer facility.
That's what I wondered.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, any comments?
Just the Connors Road culvert replacement's ongoing. The culvert itself is in, and the contractor's doing the road work, so maybe another 2 weeks, that road will be back open to the public.
Terrific.
Great.
That's all I have to say.
Nadine?
I have nothing.
Lynn? Nothing? Can I get a motion to adjourn to the regular town board meeting on...
Did you want to go to executive session or no?
Okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn the regular meeting to go into executive session. No action will be taken.
Yeah, just for personnel.
Yeah, personnel issue. And then we will resume. We don't have an idea how long it'll be, so.
Until the May 3rd meeting, you mean?
Yeah, I know. Let's hope not.
I hope not.
Can I get a motion to go into exec session, please?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Gladly.